I would like to welcome you to Herp Herp Hooray's very first internet transmission. We're simulcasting on Buzzsprout, Twitter, Facebook, and don't forget to download us on iTunes. We all know Brian Barczyk hit a home run with the Pinstripe Ball Python project. Well, Brian has a new project, and we're here to get the scoop from the man himself. I'm pleased to announce Herp Herp Hooray's very first guest, Brian Barczyk of BHB Enterprises. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, welcome, man. Thanks. Congratulations on starting the show, and I wish you a long success for sure.
Well, if we can get you to come back in the future, future shows, I'm sure we won't have a problem with that, sir.
Yeah, well, hey, man, I'm always game. I love this stuff, and anything to get people excited about reptiles, I'm 100% in. You guys, you know that I'm like all over the place, and I live to just kind of promote the hobby. I mean, that's what I think about every single day of my life. So I'm always happy to come back. You let me know when, and I'll be here.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. So why don't you describe the sunset ball python to our listeners?
Well, it's a crazy project in the sense that I can't say that I've ever mismanaged a project worse than this sunset project. And what I mean by that is that I paid $70,000 for it. I think I've been pretty upfront with people about that. And I mean, when I bought it, I had no doubt in my mind it was going to be co-dominant. I mean, I was just sure it was a co-dominant animal. I got a picture out of West Africa, and I was just like, I have to have this animal. And this was back in the day when people were spending ridiculous money on ball pythons out of West Africa. And so I knew that if I didn't buy it at their asking price, that someone else was going to stand in line and buy it. I mean, I knew there'd be 10 people behind me who's going to buy this animal, and I just thought, this has to be co-dominant. And we did find out it was a male, so I was like, okay, I can get this thing up and try to breed it, and we're going to be in great shape. So I spent the money, got the animal. I was blown away by it right as soon as I got it. It was just amazingly beautiful. And again, the thing I thought the biggest attributes to it was the fact that it had colors that really no other ball python has. You know what I mean? It's got those orange and red. And I thought to myself, wow, what is this going to do when combined with other projects? And back then, of course, there wasn't nearly the projects there are now, but there were still the pinstripes and spiders and mojaves and lessers and albinos and pies and all that other stuff. So I just was like, man, could you imagine putting this red-orange element into all of those snakes? And so I was super excited. So I bred it actually just to a handful of normal ball pythons. They were big normal females, and back then I didn't have the cachet of mutation females that I have now. And sure enough, I produced, I don't even remember the exact number, but it was probably somewhere in the 18 to 20 baby range, something in that range, and sure enough, all normals. And I was just kind of convinced at that point there was no way it was going to be genetic. I just thought that I'd swung for the fences, and I completely struck out. I mean, that's really the way I believe. Even so much to say, honest to God, I sold off the majority of the heads to, like, the pet trade for $25 a piece. Now, granted, no one's ever going to know where those go because we sell, hundreds and hundreds of normals a year, and no one's going to be able to put those together and say, oh, I've got a pair of head sunsets. But my point is that that's how I just did not believe in the future of the project. I thought it was dead. It was just a dead project. And then it took me 4 years to get the animals up to size because I just didn't really, and during that period of time, I never had the male in with another female ever again. I mean, he literally sat in his cage. And then, ironically enough, I had a female that was big enough to breed this year, actually a couple of them, but they were literally marked head sunset, and they were in my normal ball python section, my kind of, racks of normal ball pythons that are slated to go in with, quad males and whatever the case may be. And I didn't plan on breeding them back to the dad. To be totally honest, I had no interest, and I just thought the project. I'm sure when you look at that animal, you don't see recessive. I just don't see recessive when I look at it. And actually, Josh, who's my python room manager, kind of talked me into breeding them this year because I wasn't going to. I was just going to breed them to normal, because they were a couple, what I consider big normal females. And so I finally gave in to his persistence to say, you've got to breed these, you got to breed these, you got to breed these. And I finally said, all right, fine. And I didn't even hardly put any effort into it. I hate to say how terrible I did with this, but I literally just would throw the male in, a week later I'd pull them out, give them a week off, I'd put them back, and never even really, just wasn't excited about it because I just thought I was set. I didn't want to get excited because I didn't want to set myself up for more disappointment. You know what I mean? I'd already been crushed 4 years prior thinking it was co-dominant. I just didn't think anything was. Sure enough, one of the females ovulated, and then subsequently laid 4 good eggs and a couple slugs, and fertile eggs. And I remember Josh being really excited about it. And again, me being just completely poo-pooing it. Like, this is not a big deal. It's not going to prove out genetic, blah, blah, blah. And throughout the whole incubation, Josh would like, oh, the sunset's coming up. I can't wait till this clutch hatches. And again, I continued saying, like, dude, it's not going to be recessive. There's no way. And so sure enough, day 52 or so came around, and quite honestly, I think I kind of had a bad week, you know what I mean? Like, it was a Friday night, and and it was just one of those tough weeks, you know what I mean, where just things weren't going well. I was getting quite a bit of bad news about some different things, and I just was like, you know what, I need some good news, and I kind of just in my heart felt there wasn't going to be genetic, but I thought, I'm just going to cut this clutch just for the hell of it, and maybe I'll get lucky. And sure enough, the very first egg I cut was a sunset. And and I just kind of freaked out. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I was in shock. Like, yeah, and it's a hard feeling to describe when you produce something that you've put so much into, and at the same time, it's hard to describe the feeling of all the emotions that go through you about how much you've screwed up. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, this male could have bred so many animals the last 4 seasons, and it didn't breed anything at all. It just sat in a cage. And I just sit back and think how different things could have been. But at the same time, I don't really regret it, honest to God, because I think that everything has the right timing. And I seriously think that if I would have produced the sunsets 3 years ago, it probably wouldn't have made the impact that it's going to make going forward. You know what I mean? So I think in a way, yeah, in a way, I think it was almost a godsend that things went the way it went. Because the bananas everyone was just about bananas the last few years, and I think the Blue Sunset would have maybe gotten buried in the banana craze if I would have produced it in the last few years. So, and it's not that bananas aren't great, because they're great animals. They're going to be great animals for futures. But I mean, that kind of really crazy, I'm going to throw $50,000 at an animal is kind of behind us now. And now they're, hitting that next level, which is going to make bananas even probably more popular, more affordable prices and stuff. But people are kind of looking towards maybe the next, what's the next project? And I can't say for sure that the Sunset's going to be that next project, but I personally think it may be that next project. Not to mention, it's been a long time since a recessive project has been proven out that could make a really big impact on things. And we all know that recessive projects hold their value a little bit longer, so because you can't just truckload animals out. So I think I'm really excited. Again, I'm mixed emotions because I kind of screwed the pooch on it. But I couldn't be more thrilled, and they're incredible animals, and they're just so neat. They just fed for the first time for me the last 2 weeks, and so we got them on the beef up plan, and they they look awesome. As a matter of fact, I'll be putting a blog out probably within the next week or so that'll have the first kind of official pictures. I know there's unofficial pictures out there, but the first kind of official pictures that are done by Aaron Jones, who's a tremendous professional photographer that's been on covers of books and magazines, and he's just an amazing wildlife photographer. And he came out and shot the animals a few days ago, and I just today got the pictures back from them, and they're just so awesome. And so I'll be putting a blog out with the kind of first official pictures, and then I'll let everyone else choose and see if they think they're going to be as big of an impact as I think they are.
I think you hit on that, man. I think they are going to be a hit. So congratulations again on that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and it's a great feeling. It really is, and I love everything. I love every ball python I produce and every corn snake and king snake I produce. But when you hit something that's really special, like the pinstripes, where you years later. I mean, I tell people this sometimes. It's kind of weird that you can walk into a pet store in Germany, and you see a pinstripe, and you think, my gosh, that's something that like derived from our line. You know what I mean? When you have something that you know every single specimen out there came from that first time you remember cutting the clutch. You know what I mean? It's like to think that, holy cow, I remember being in my incubator room and cutting the first pinstripe clutch and seeing the very first baby pinstripe, and now there are pinstripes all over the world in so many incredible mutations that have been produced by other people with pinstripes, and to know that it all derived from that one moment of you cutting that clutch of eggs is a feeling that's really, really special. And we've been fortunate enough to be involved in several projects that have been, first kind and exclusive. But I think that the biggest projects are the pinstripe, obviously, and now the sunset. I think that there's all these other projects have been really great, but I think this will be the second one I think that I've ever hit that is that much of an impact. And again, I don't mean to sound boisterous or egotistical about it, because again, it's up to everyone else to decide whether or not this is going to be a great project. But me personally, I think when we see sunsets and pinstripes and albinos and pieds and you name the mutation, I mean, I think it will make that impact, and I hope that 10 years from now I'll be looking at sunsets that other people are producing around the world and have that same feeling of accomplishment that, wow, it all started from that one animal.
Well, I can tell you you've done it, because we buy with our eyes, and you can definitely, there's no doubt about it, you're going to want that in your collection.
Yeah. Well, I sure hope so. I mean, I would think that, there aren't a lot of game changers in snakes, you know what I mean? As far as, like, there's a lot of great mutations out there and a lot of really stuff. Bananas are game changers, spiders were game changers, pinstripes were game changers, something like that. And I think this is a game changer. I think that you could take every single mutation of ball python and breed it to a sunset, and you're going to get something radically different. Not something that's just a little bit different, but something that is radically different. And you're going to be able to use another color palette that has really been missing from the ball python world, and that's that kind of reddish color. And again, you never know how it's going to translate, you know what I mean? So I don't want to overthink it and get too far ahead of myself. I mean, in my head, I can see what I think a sunset pinstripe will look like, or a sunset pied, especially with a pied that already exaggerates color when you have pattern in a pied. But again, until you do it, you never know. You know what I mean? Like some projects, look at vanillas are a great example. They were a relatively benign whatever type project until you bred them into fire. And then bam, vanilla creams came out, and it's a game changer. Now all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, this is something different. So let's hope people feel the same way and get as excited about it as I am. And again, I can't stress enough, my excitement isn't about financial gain. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, and I hope to God I make lots of money on it. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not about the money that I'm excited. I'm excited just to have proved it out, and I'm excited to see what the next levels are. You know what I mean? It's sure there's a financial element to the success of something like that, but it's certainly not at all what drives me in any direction that I ever go. I want to make money because I want to keep doing what I love, but it's not like I'm excited because I think I just made $1 million. I mean, that's not it, at all. I mean, it's exciting because I can't wait to see what it can produce next, so that's kind of the way I look at those things.
So would you say there are any het markers or anything that could distinguish, something out of that clutch saying, yeah, something is definitely tweaked with that animal, a marker?
It's tough. It's tough, we haven't, I wish I had all the hats that I sold off as normals to look at. Oh my gosh, it's so pathetic that I did that. But there's no doubt that there's a few little markers on the animals that we produced this year, including the couple adults that we have. Nothing, but it's not enough for me to say that, again, it looks like a normal ball python, but there's a couple little blotches, like a little circle patterns that I'm seeing on every single head, and I'm wondering if that's going to be a marker trait for them, but it's too early to tell yet. I need to produce more of them, and again, I mean, unfortunately, it's not like I even took that male to some normal females this year to produce heteros so that I have a cachet hets to look at. So next year he'll be a busy boy. You know what I mean? Obviously, I've got my work cut out for me, and I need to breed him into, I'm going to try to nail him into as many, like I'll probably just do one female of every type of mutation that I have that I think he can breed, so if maybe I dedicate him to 6, 7, 8 females, whatever it is, I want each female to be something different, a pinstripe, a spider, a pied, an albino, so my whole idea is next year to just try to produce, visual codom, het sunsets, and potential double het sunset stuff, and then, we'll be able to, when we have, hopefully, God willing, he breeds and we have good success and something like that, if we have, 5 clutches of hets, we can start looking and see if there's anything that's really, going to be a marker trait that we're positive of.
Well, that was my next question, to see if you had, put them to any other females just to see what, would happen. But you said you stuck them in a drawer, so I was just seeing if there was anybody else,
I tell you, I cannot tell you how much I wish I would have, but there just didn't seem to be any need to breed him to anything else when I didn't feel he was going to be genetic. For the life of me, I still look at this animal, and it defies everything that I believe as far as what would tell me if it was recessive. I look at this animal, and I cannot believe it's recessive. I literally am still in shock that it's a recessive trait. It just doesn't have anything that you can usually look at an animal, a clown, an albino, a pied, and you can say that's not going to be codominant. That's got to be something that's recessive. This is one of those animals that, I look at and everything looks towards either codominant or not genetic. So again, we didn't want to waste the animals to breed them to. So now I'm kicking myself. But again, maybe it's a good thing in the end. You know what I mean? Maybe it's going to be the right thing because it'll be the right timing. And of course, if I came out next year and produced 35 sunsets, the market would be a lot different. You know what I mean? And the fact that literally next year, my capability to produce sunsets is probably lucky to produce 4 or 5 of them next year, and that's if things go well. And that's the way it's going to be for the next couple years. For the next 2 or 3 years, I'm going to be lucky to produce 4 or 5 animals a year. So now I should hopefully produce a bunch of het stuff. But maybe it's a good thing that I'm not going to be running out of the gates with 20 or 30 babies per year and killing the market for everybody. You know what I mean?
There's always next season. You got it, man. So how is your season going?
It's going really good. We worked really hard. Again, Josh, we brought Josh on last year at the end of the breeding season. So this was his first kind of full breeding season with us. And together, I think we worked really well, and we worked really hard. I can honestly say this may have been the hardest I've ever worked on breeding snakes this year. I was really dedicated, very diligent, didn't take shortcuts. We made sure we did everything right, and our diligence paid off. Now, how much do we? I think that, dedication and diligence certainly has something to do with your success rate. But we all know too that you can do everything right and have a bad year, and sometimes you can do a lot of things wrong and have a good year. It just so happens we had a good year, and I think we did everything as close to right as we possibly could. But yeah, it's been going good. We've hit a bunch of first-time animals. I think we probably hit about 20 or 25 first-time animals already, and we've got quite a ways to go with our production. Not only egg hatching, but also egg laying. And of course, we're just getting rolling on the colubrid side of things, and we've had a really good colubrid year too. So this has been a great year. Hey, we didn't hit everything. There's no way you're going to do that, but this has been one of our better years all around. When I look at everything, the ball python production, the boa production, the other python production, and then now colubrid production, and even some lizard production that we've been playing with. So I'm excited to see what these last eggs go. These last maybe 40% of my clutches, what they do and what we produce, and we have some exciting stuff coming too. We've had a lot of cool stuff, but we got a lot of cool stuff still cooking, and knock on wood, we'll hit some odds and get some cool stuff.
You want to name a few of those cool things off for us?
Oh my gosh, I do a lot of Enchi stuff. I'm excited about a lot of these 4 and 5 bang Enchi animals. The Red Stripe project, I've been really excited about that. We've been doing a bunch of combos with that project. First time combos. Obviously we've been working a lot with the GHI stuff, so I'm excited about that. We did a lot of crystal stuff this year that worked out real well, as well as Super Stripe and Puma stuff. But the list just goes on and on. Clown stuff. We got potential different clown mutations, and the list just goes on. I'm always telling people, it's like I'm excited about everything. We got Tough stuff. That we got potential to produce this year, and it just go. There's so many things. It's hard for me to just name a couple, and then of course there's a lot of combo stuff and a lot of like first time stuff that we're trying to hit, like the Shadow Ball and stuff like that. So yeah, it's I'm excited about everything. Every clutch I'm excited about.
So back to the Red Stripe then. What are you doing with that? Are you going down the Red Devil Avenue, or you got something else up your sleeve?
Well, I think, yeah, of course I'm going to go down that avenue, but I wanted to, I think that, and Ian's a really great friend of mine, and I think that, he really hasn't showcased that project very well, I always rip on him about it because I'm like, dude, I think that this is like a really, really good project. I think it's going to be one of those enhancer genes like an Enchi or a Yellow Belly or a vanilla, something like that, that on its own it's a neat-looking snake. It's not going to knock your socks off. But bred into other things, it's going to be really, really cool, And again, it has that kind of element of redness to it that we're missing from a lot of these other mutations. It's certainly not as red and orange as the Sunset, but it's got that element that will enhance other genes. And really, he's only bred into a couple mutations so far. So, I'm anxious to see what is a red stripe pinstripe going to look like? What's a super red stripe pinstripe going to look like? What's a red stripe albino going to look like? What's a super red stripe albino going to look like? And then the list just kind of goes on. And so that's the way we went this year, is we tried to breed into as many things as we possibly could, and hopefully get the basis, not only for the maybe double codom or triple codom animals, but then also get the ingredients to start producing the supers of those double and triple codom animals, as well as some recessive stuff too. So I think it's a sleeper project. I really do. I think that it's a project that most people don't realize is going to be an up and comer. And again, if you can call a $5,000 snake a sleeper project, I don't know that you can, but I seriously think if it was appreciated on the level that I appreciate it, I think it should be a $10,000 snake. I really, truly believe that. And I think that, going forward in the next 2-3 years, when we start really being able to put some super red stripe different combos together, I think it's going to be one of those animals that it's going to be a must-have in the collection. I really do believe it.
Okay, switching to the GHI, you got to have it. So I'll be honest, that's the first gene I thought about mixing with the Sunset. I thought it would be a nice complement to each other.
Yeah, it's great. It is a great idea, and it's something that certainly we'll work on in the future. There's no doubt about it. I think the darkness of the GHI could really complement the kind of bizarre color of the Sunset. And what's interesting with the Sunset is that it is a pattern mutation as well. It's not just a color mutation. The pattern is very unique. So even if it was in normal colors, it would be a very unique animal. So again, with the GHI, I think it might be really good. I love the GHI stuff. I know Kevin Maturley always messes with me about being the king of earth tones, and so I love
I heard that good day.
Yeah, he's been ripping on me for about 2 years about that, and we just, obviously Kev's a tremendous friend of mine, and one of my dearest friends. I love the guy to death, but he rips me all the time about earth tones, and the truth is, probably 90% of my maybe not 90, probably 80% of my ball python collection is bright. It's albinos and pastel-y type stuff, like bright stuff. But I do have a propensity to really like to work the earth tone projects, things like the chocolates and the GHIs and other projects like that. I just like them. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I really enjoy that earth tone feel to snakes. So so I really, obviously I've always been really excited about the GHI project, and fortunately this year was the first year that we had an opportunity to breed them. And we've only hatched one female out so far, so it's not like we're killing it on GHI stuff, but we do have some more potential for some pretty good combos, and as well as some straight stuff as well. So so yeah, GHI stuff's going to be really cool, and I can't wait to get it into sunset, but unfortunately it's probably going to be another year or two away, unfortunately.
Well, you got to have it. So let me get your take on the Tofino and how it's compatible with the albino gene.
Well, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I mean, obviously it reminds me of, the same type of, complex as, say, a super stripe or whatever, you want to do, whatever, crystals or whatever, where it's obviously an allelic animal. I can't say I was overly surprised, to be totally honest with you, because we saw stuff, similar stuff happen in colubrids. Probably the one thing that I would point out the most would be like the T-positive Nelson's milk. You know what I mean? When you breed a T-positive Nelson's milk to an albino, you get T-positive Nelson's right off the bat. So we've seen some other mutations that have happened. I think I may have been more surprised that the Tofino stuff happened, but the lavender albino stuff didn't happen. That was maybe more surprising to me. Like when you breed a lavender albino to an albino, you don't get lavender albinos. I thought that was more probable. So again, I think in a way I was surprised that the lav stuff didn't work out, and then the Tofino stuff did work out. You know what I mean? It was like I thought they both would probably work out. And so I thought that was a little bit interesting. But I think it's great. In all honesty, I think that it's now become an easier way to produce a very beautiful snake. Whereas when it was only just candies or toffees, obviously the only way you could produce either one of those would mean that you had to buy het toffees or het candies, or candies or toffees. So the fact that now you can take a het toffee male and breed it to a het albino male, or a het albino female, I'm sorry, and produce Tofinos potentially, that's a pretty low investment. You know what I mean? It's like if you have a het albino female and you can pick up a het toffee male for pretty cheap, it's a great way to get into a really nice, beautiful project for a very economic way. So I'm excited about it, and I think that it'll be interesting to see when we start getting some other mutations into the Tofino stuff. Like we have the opportunity to potentially produce a few things with the Tofino stuff this year, like spider Tofinos and a few other things. So yeah, hopefully, God willing, we'll again have success and start to really exploit that project as best as we can.
Outstanding. So is there any breeding between toffee and lavs that we know of, or?
I don't know. I don't personally know of any. I've heard rumors, but I don't know anyone that's done it, and that will be very interesting to see what happens. I can't even venture to guess what's going to happen, to be honest with you. My gut feeling is that you're going to probably produce normals, or double heads. I mean, that's my gut feeling. Although I want them to produce something more than that. You look at the two. If you look at a toffee and you look at a lavender, there's a lot of similarities, So you think maybe, hey, this should probably produce some combination thereof. But I think that because they're allelic with albinos and lavender albinos are not allelic with albinos, that would tell me that the protein is on a different strand or a different allele, which would make me believe that the toffees and lavenders should not produce anything but a normal phenotypical animal.
Double heads.
Exactly. That would be my guess. And then the downside would be when you produce the double heads, how the hell would you tell what's a toffee and what's a lavender and what's a lavender toffee? I don't know how you would be able to tell the difference. It's kind of a project that I don't think I want to even touch, because I think you're going to produce a bunch of mutts that you don't know what the hell are. It's kind of like breeding two strains of Axanthics together, that are incompatible. now you got double heads for axanthics, and you don't know what the hell they are. You don't know what's a VPI axanthic, what's a Sutherland axanthic, what's a nerd axanthic, and when you finally produce axanthic stuff, you can't really sell it because you can't sell it as an axanthic VPI, and you can't sell it as an axanthic Sutherland strain. You know what I mean?
The mix.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I can tell you this much: I'm not going to be the guy that breeds a toffee to a lavender, because I don't even want to go down that path. I just want nothing to do with it whatsoever. I hope someone else does, because I'd love to see what the outcome is, but I want to see what the outcome is from a distance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. I totally understand that. So what animal are you excited to bring online next season, other than the Sunset, of course? It's going to be of age and, breedable size.
Wow, it's a really tough one. There's a lot, there's a lot. There's a lot of animals we're raising that are really, really nice animals and have a lot of great genetics. And the other thing is, like I said, probably the hardest thing, and I get asked this all the time, like, what are you the most excited about? And this is kind of that type of question. It's probably the hardest question that I can answer, because I really am a guy that's uber passionate about everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm excited about corn snakes still. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm excited, like I have this lavender terrazzo project that I've been working on for a while, and next year I've got some adult lavender terrazzos that I can breed in, to some lavender terrazzos that are, possible het for hypo and all these other genes. And so my point is that, I'm excited about stuff that probably no one else is excited about. I always tell people I always have a number of calcine projects that I'm probably the only person in the world cares about. You know what I mean? It's like I spent 4 or 5 years, working a project to finally produce this calcine that's worth $25. But I'm still just as excited about it as I've ever been. I'm like, oh my gosh, we just hit this, and sometimes you can see me do the kind of, the snake hatch dance, like I said, with a $25 snake, the same as I would do with a $25,000 snake. So I think it's difficult for any animal lover to say I'm excited about one individual thing, but I think it's even more difficult for a guy like me that is so uber passionate about all projects. And I know it's hard for people to believe, but it is honest to God truth. When I'm hatching an albino corn snake, I get the same thrill as if I'm hatching a firepin pied. Literally, it's the same feeling, like you're hatching a little living animal that you've worked really hard to produce. And so when it comes to excited next year, it's everything. I'm excited about every animal I have up. It's literally, there's not an animal that I'm not excited about working with and breeding. And quite frankly, if I wasn't excited about it, I wouldn't keep it. And that's my policy. I'm not kidding you. I have a policy that when I don't like an animal, I don't breed it. Even if I invest money into it and raise it up, I won't breed it if I've lost interest in the project. I'll just say, I'm done. I'm not doing this project justice, and I need to move on to something else that I like better.
Well, at least you could suck it up and move on. That's what it takes.
It doesn't happen often, because most of the time I like everything. There's only been a handful of projects, like some blood python projects and a few other things that I literally just didn't enjoy working with them. You know what I mean? I didn't enjoy the project, and so I got rid of them. I was like, all right, I'm done. And some of those projects I've gotten rid of and then regretted getting rid of afterwards. So that's just that's how it goes.
So what do you see being the next big project for ball pythons?
Oh, my. That's $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah. We know the Sunset is going to be, but, other than the Sunset, what's number 2?
Let's hope so. Let's hope that is. But outside of that, I don't know that there's a new project that's coming up. I think it might just be continuing to work some of the projects that are already around there. Stuff like enchies, for instance. I think that, enchies have gained popularity in the last 2 years, but I think they need to be even more popular. I think it is absolutely ridiculous to sell a female enchie for under $600 or $700. I mean, I'm serious. I think if someone is selling a female Enchi for under $600 or $700, they are giving away the future. You know, and I happen to know that people aren't wanting to pay $600 or $700 for a baby Enchi. You know, I mean, so my value of what I value an Enchi at is far greater than what people are willing to pay for it. And because I just think as a combo animal, it's ridiculous. You know. But I think that you know, that being said, I think Kevin has a few projects that he's working on that are really, you know, good, like that Lucifer project he calls it. I really like that stuff. You know, there's a few other projects that he's working on. Well, I mean, I'm sure he's probably got 20 projects that are ridiculous, you know, but or maybe 100 projects. I don't know.
More like double that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but there are some things I think that are going to be, you know, kind of game changers with some of the stuff he's working with, and I'm sure some other projects are out there that I'm not really aware of. You know, like the Dinker projects that people are working on. I really like the mahogany stuff. You know, I think that's a project that, again, it goes back to earth tones, but I think it's a project that has. I mean, people give it some credit, but it hasn't gained the momentum that I thought it was going to gain. And I think it might. I think that's a sleeper project, you know. I mean, you can produce a solid black snake that's even blacker than a super cinnamon, but it doesn't have any of the bulbous nose issues or any of the other problems that come along with super cinnamons. I think that also there's a chance for a real true pandish pied with the mahogany as opposed to the cinnamon or black pastel, where you're going to legitimately maybe get a 80 to 20 to 80% black and white snake. You know, also we've done some things with obviously with the gold dust stuff, and this year we've produced Cinnabee mahoganies and we did cinnamon mahoganies, which are ridiculously nice this year. So I think there's going to be a bunch of stuff in the mahogany project that's going to be really earth-shattering, and for people that like the darker, more earth-tony animals. But again, I'm sure there's a ton of other stuff that's going to kind of steal away. I mean, right now the thing that's great about ball pythons in particular is that there's so many ingredients that are so incredible. You can literally go in 10 completely different directions and still produce the same quality of animal. That's going to be incredible. So to me, it's a very exciting time in the ball python world because there's so much you can do and so many and you're never, and this is what I've told people, literally, if I live to be 100 years, I would not see the last ball python morph produced, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I can spend a lifetime working with ball pythons and still never achieve the end result, which is going to be something that will go on for I mean, as long as we're allowed to keep ball pythons, there's going to be new mutations of ball pythons being produced every single year, which is pretty exciting.
So going back to the prices on Enchis, I mentioned it once a long time ago on your snake bites video. I'm sure other people have also, but I see you got care sheets on your website. What if you did some sort of like price list for ball python morphs? I know there's tons. It would be, relentless work, but I think that would be good to have something that the hobbyists could go off of, that's it's not going to kill the market,
Right, but unfortunately, and I wish that would be the case, but there's a couple issues there. Obviously, the one thing you got to be a little careful of is the whole price fixing thing because that's illegal. But I mean, people can certainly have a suggested retail price or something like that.
Right.
But there's people just don't follow suit. I mean, I hate to say it, you're always going to have a guy that's going to be cheaper than you. I mean, you can never have everyone play the same game. You know what I mean? And that's what's really difficult when you're starting a project like the pinstripes or cinnamons or spiders or caramel albinos or now the sunset, is that you've got to try to get a group of people that are willing to not price fix, but to be respectful to everybody else. You know what I mean? And but eventually every project will have that guy that will make it cheaper. You know what I mean? And that's just the way it's going to be. When you sell them to 2 people, you can control things a little bit. When 5 people have it, you can still control it, but now you got to negotiate a little bit. When you have 10 people, it's really hard. By the time you have 20 people, there's going to be a few people that are going to cut your price, and they're going to be cheaper than you. So I think that, and then of course, markets change, stuff, supply and demand. So it's hard to, like you said, to have kind of a base like price guide where this is what things to go for, because it's almost just a suggested price guide. You're going to see, this guy's going to have Enchis. Like I said, I'm a guy that won't sell an Enchi female for under $600. I see them sometimes posted for $300, half the price that I would offer them for. Doesn't mean people should buy them from me, and quite frankly, I'll probably raise the majority I produce up because there's probably not a line of people that are willing to pay me what I think the value is on them. And so it's a little bit arbitrary what people think. I think the value of an animal is what it can potentially produce, and I can't see giving away. I mean, in all honesty, although I sell them all the time, I sell pastels all the time, the truth is that I think a female pastel for $100 or $125 is ridiculous, because adult female pastel is gold. What you can do with it if you have a really powerful male.
I feel they should be $200.
Yeah, or more. They should be $500 maybe. I don't know. I mean, they're valuable as an asset to produce, but again, the market sets the demand, and they set the price. And so, I can think whatever I want, and ultimately I'll eventually, like Enchi's a good example. If I put 30 of them on the shelf this year to raise up, and 30 next year, and 30 the following year, eventually I'll get to a point and go, well, if I want to sell these, I'm going to have to reduce my price. And that'll be, whatever happens. But I mean, like I said, I don't ever really worry too much, in all honesty, about market price, because I feel like that takes care of itself. I always just try to put out what I feel is a fair price, not the cheapest price, not the most expensive price, and then let everyone else figure out what the deal is. I don't worry about so-and-so is selling them for this price, or so-and-so is selling them for that price. I don't really care about that much. I just look and say, all right, well, what's the general value of this animal? And then I try to price it accordingly to that, not worrying about being the lowest, because there's always going to be someone else that's lower. And I always tell people in business, there's really three things in all business, whether you're selling cars, bicycles, or ball pythons. And it's price, quality, and service. So what you want to try to do is have, the best quality you possibly can at a fair price with great service. And if you have that, you can't worry about the other things. And I think that, when you worry about price being the most important thing, you're never going to succeed. Really, I think quality and service should be the biggest thing, and then the price should be a fair price, not necessarily the cheapest price.
Well, I'll tell you, I visit www.bhbreptiles.com when I'm trying to find an animal, that I produced. I'm trying to find a comparable. Don't really find the lower end stuff all the time, but I try to look on yours, Kevin's, the big guys, to try to get a good estimate of where those, the range where those balls are at,
Well, good. Well, thank you, and I appreciate it, and we do our best to try to be in the game, get an idea of what something's worth. But every now and then we flub it. Sometimes you put stuff out that seems to be too cheap, and other times you put stuff out that, is way too expensive, and we miss the market. But we do our best to try to, price our stuff according to what we feel people are, willing to pay and what people are selling them for. So I do appreciate the visit, and we're always working on the site, trying our hardest to, to continue to increase the kind of virality to the site. You know what I mean? We've got some great stuff in store, web-based stuff in store that I think is going to be really fun. I mean, we already have a lot of, kind of funny games and photo contests, and we're always kind of pushing the envelope on our site. But we have some really good stuff coming up in the future, in particular a web-based game that I think is going to really blow people away when it's done, and I think it not only will be really, really fun for people that are in the snake business to play, but I think people outside the snake business will really be attracted to this game too. So, and that's something that's been in development for a while now. I can't say a whole lot more about it, but I think it's something that I think will be done sometime this summer. And it's going to be awesome. So, and again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, I breed snakes for a living. Obviously, that's what I do for a living. But I spend a tremendous amount of my time trying to how to win over the people that don't know enough about snakes. You know what I mean? And how we can bring them in. And that's ultimately why we started our web show 4.5 years ago, was to really open the door for other people that didn't have the appreciation for animals, and we thought, well, TV is certainly one way to do it, but it's very difficult to get a TV show. So we thought, let's try this web thing, and here we are, 4.5 years later, and and it's worked out really well. But like I said, we try other things like this game. I think it's going to be really good. Obviously, we're involved in a million other projects too, but we're real proud of the website, and we're proud of the future, like the content that's there. We feel like there's, a lot of content there, and the content is always continues to grow, and me and my web guy are always, beating each other in the head, trying to come up with new and kind of innovative ideas that other people haven't done yet to try to get people excited about it.
In case you didn't know, we were talking about Snake Bites TV. So whose idea was that?
Well, it was kind of funny, to be honest with you. It was, in all honesty, it was, it goes back to really TV. I was sitting on the couch. I kid you not. I was sitting on the couch one night, and this is when American Chopper was, really, really popular back in the day. It was, maybe in its second or third season, and it was like Discovery Channel's big, flagship, channel, and I just thought to myself, my gosh, our life is as exciting and interesting and drama-filled as this, and I think people would really like it. And so I, started just kind of reaching out to people. I didn't know anything about television at the time, and I started reaching out to people and saying, hey, anyone I can pitch this snake idea to? And ultimately, fortunately, I know a lot of people, so it didn't take long before a friend of a friend of a friend had the right ins, and I had this kind of big net out there of, like, to all these people. And sure enough, there was a guy named Kenny Herman that worked for Spike TV at the time, and he was just starting to work with a company called Next New Networks, which was an online video company that just started up, that was put on by a bunch of old world media guys like Tim Shea and a few other guys that, like, literally, Fred Seibert, who like literally, Fred was the first ever employee for MTV. He worked for HBO, and they literally pulled Fred off of HBO to bring him into this idea, music television idea. And so these were old world media types that started this new world media online video company. And you got to remember, YouTube was only about a year old at the time, so there was not this base for internet television. And so these guys were relatively innovative. And sure enough, Kenny from Spike TV contacted me saying, hey, listen, I don't know if we have any interest at Spike TV, but, I'm working with this new online video company, and I think they'd really like to work with you. And so I was like, I don't know, I'll listen to the pitch, let me know what they want to do. And they contacted me. It was actually a lady named Erin Flood, and she said, well, this is the deal. You would produce these webisodes, on a regular basis, and they would be 5 to 10 minutes long, and it would be whatever you want to do, but you would come up with the ideas, you would film them, you would edit them, and then we'll distribute them. And I sat there for a minute and said, you're effing crazy. What I mean? I'd like to do some television stuff, but I'm not a producer. I don't have camera gear. I don't know how to produce a show. I mean, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? I was like, I don't know anything about this stuff. And so I was like, I just don't think I can do this. And they were willing to pay us by the minute, but it wasn't lucrative. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, well, by the time I paid for my time and energy and equipment and all this other stuff, I'm basically making minimum wage. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so they were pretty persistent over the next month, kind of contacting me. And the more that it seemed like, getting onto TV was going to be a little bit more of a challenge than I expected, I thought to myself, well, maybe this online internet thing is kind of cool. Maybe I'll do something like this, and maybe that will help me get a TV show. I mean, that was the initial thought, right? And so we put together a group of people that with their help, that could produce the show and this and that, and we really, honest to God, we're planning on doing 6 to 10 shows. That was our plan. Okay, we're going to do 6 to 10 shows, and then ironically enough, Next New Networks kind of had a financial issue, because they were a venture capital type of business that was started up with like $4 million venture capital, and they basically ran out of money. And they passed on, they were like, well, we can't work with you anymore. We can't afford to pay you, to do this thing. And so at this point, I had made a few connections with camera guys and editors, and I thought, let's just do, a handful more shows and see where it goes. And, 10 weeks turned into 50 weeks and turned into our first, year and a half, and turned into 2 years. And by this time, right around the year and a half mark, Next New Networks, ironically enough, contacted me again and said, well, we're back on our feet. You've grown a nice little following. We'd like to work with you again. And at the time, we were getting about 200,000 views a month on our own. And so we signed with Next New Networks over the next year. A little more than a year we were with them, and they took us to about 1 million views a month, and which was awesome. And then they actually got bought by YouTube. So they became part of YouTube, and I was back on my own again. But that was okay because we had already built a lot bigger audience, and things were going well, so I was happy to do it on my own. And we continued on, and then just recently, about a month ago, we signed with a company called Maker Studio, and they're out in L.A., and they are like the biggest, they represent like the biggest of the big YouTube people, and just been really working with them over the last little bit, so it hasn't really helped the channel, but I think it will in the future, and they're really great to work with, so it's been an exciting project, and I don't know where the future is going to take us, I really don't, but I know it's such a part of my life now that I couldn't imagine not filming it, it's just what I do, every week you film, every week you release, every week it's just part of your daily routine, and it's been unbelievably humbling, the amount of support that we get around the world. It's truly amazing, and I can't thank everyone enough for all their support.
Well, it's a grassroots movement, and I could definitely see you guys on the big screen on a 2-hour full feature. So what's your YouTube channel for everybody out there?
It's just, youtube.com/SnakeBitesTV, and of course, it's BYTES, not BITS. And anyone can go, anyone can go and check that out anytime. You can. Now we're fortunate we have such a great internet DNA that you can literally just Google snakes usually, and I come. It's like, as a matter of fact, it's cool that YouTube, which is really, more or less a video search engine. That's really what it is. If you type in snakes in YouTube or snake in YouTube, our video is the first video you'll see. So it's been really amazing. The algorithm has helped us out a tremendous amount. So we're pretty easy to find. And of course, anyone that knows anything about me knows that I'm a complete social media whore, and I tweet constantly. It's twitter.com/SnakeBitesTV, and Facebook constantly. We have Facebook.com BHB Reptiles, Snake Bites TV, and of course my personal one, that's Brian Barczyk. But I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to that realm. I'm all about it. So it's I feel like the thing that's great about online media is that it's interactive, very interactive, and I talk about this a lot. And we have, by the way, we have shot some TV stuff recently, and that news will be coming out. Sometimes, when the network allows me to talk about it, about when our TV show will happen, but, that'll be, I keep hearing sometime this summer, but I don't know. It's a very strange world, but the thing that's great about online video as opposed to television or new world as opposed to old world is the interaction part. You know what I mean? It's like now, when you're watching a YouTube video or an online video, you're almost always one keystroke away from being directly in touch with the people putting it on. You know what I mean? Like, I spend a lot of my Wednesday is just, commenting back to people's comments on YouTube, and of course I read them throughout the entire week. I can't keep up with all the comments all week long, but throughout the whole week, I wake up in the morning, I read YouTube comments, I read Facebook comments, I read Twitter comments, and I respond back to as many as I possibly can, but that's kind of neat, whereas like with television, when you're watching your, favorite show, you're so far removed from the talent on that show. There's no way to get in touch with them or interact with them or be friends with them on Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case may be. And they'll never really interact with you, whereas the online world is all about interaction. So I just love that part of it. You know what I mean? It's like it's cool that you can get feedback immediately when you do something. You put something out, and you can change things on the fly so quickly. So it's it's really cool, and it's like I said, it's part of my life. And it's although my goal was always to get on TV. Now my goal is to be on both TV and internet. You know what I mean? And I think, in all honesty, and I know this might surprise some of your listeners, but if I were to choose between TV and internet, I think I would choose internet. Which is a little bit bizarre. It's bizarre for me to even think about it, but it is really true. I mean, I think that TV is great, and it has a lot of opportunities, and I have a lot of great friends that do television, and they're really good.
Just so you know, I don't have cable, so hopefully that'll influence your decision.
Well, like I said, I'm very much about trying to never forget the internet side of things. As a matter of fact, I know my agent, when I was talking to him when we were first, getting the TV stuff rolling. He said, and by the way, I'm not some bigwig, like, ooh, I got, you kind of need an agent when you're doing TV stuff. It's not like because you're such a hot shot. It's because you've got to have somebody represent you to do the negotiations. And so I was talking to him. I remember him saying, honestly, he said, you're going to be so busy when we're filming the TV stuff that you're probably not going to want to do a web show. And I remember my response to him is, you don't know me. You don't know me well enough, because I'm that guy. I'm the guy that will do. I will not stop, filming if I don't have to. And it's because, like you said, there's it's not just people that don't have cable, but it's also people in other countries that won't get the show. You know what I mean? I have a tremendous amount of support from all over the world, which is, it's humbling. It's beyond humbling when you have people that constantly are messaging you and tweeting you and Facebooking you from all parts of the whole world, whether it be Singapore or Australia or the Middle East or Russia or wherever the case is. And those people would never have an opportunity to see our TV show. So it's certainly something that I'm very compelled to keep going, and I feel, I couldn't imagine, not doing it, to be totally honest with you. I mean, it's just, again, I'm sure there'll be a day, I don't know when it is, I'm sure there'll be a day where I'll have to stop or change the schedule or do something, because let's face it, it's really difficult to put out a show every week. I mean, you're about to find out with your radio thing here that, doing a weekly show, or however frequently you're going to do it, there's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? It's like you got to come up with a new guest or a new idea or a new skit or a new this or a new that to keep everybody entertained for a long time. And when you do it week after week after week, and now, like I said, we're coming up on over 4.5 years without ever missing a week, it becomes very, consuming, but I love it. I love every minute of it. And I'm sure there'll be a day, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, where I'll have to restructure my schedule, where I say, okay, well, maybe we're, and I've thought about it, maybe we're going to do seasons instead of doing 52 weeks a year. Maybe we do, 2 13-week seasons and then take 2 13-week breaks. I mean, I've thought about it. I'm not going to do that now. I mean, right now I'm committed to continue to do this every week, week in and week out. But eventually I'm sure that there'll have to be some adjustments, because I don't see myself 5 years from now continuing to do every single week a show. I think it would be really, really difficult to keep that pace. But then again, maybe it won't. I like I said, if I would have looked, 4 years ago and thought that I was going to have 4.5 years or 229 shows in my belt, I would have never thought that I could have kept that pace up. So who knows? Maybe I'll be able to keep doing it. You just never know. But again, I think it's about, continue to have fun. You know what I mean? As long as you're enjoying it, you got to keep it going. When it becomes a job, at that point, you probably want to walk away from it.
Just keep up that pace, and you could probably retire early. You release it at the 2 13-week, intervals,
Right. Yeah, and again, you just never know what the future holds. I mean, again, I'm excited about working with Maker Studio now. I mean, who knows what opportunity that will bring. I don't know. I mean, the one thing I can say is everything changes so quick in the online world. It's like what was, as a matter of fact, now you may notice our shows are typically 10 or 12 minutes long. Like I said, when we first started out, our shows were under 5 minutes. And that was the standard for online video. I mean, pretty much people didn't want to watch a video that was over 5 minutes. People just felt like, oh, I don't want to watch this. Now people have a much longer attention span online, and even the shows that were really, really solid 5-minute shows have expanded to 8, 9, 10-minute shows because people want to now watch 10-minute shows instead of 5-minute shows. So who knows what's going to happen 2 or 3 years from now? You know what I mean? And so you just don't know. And again, maybe the financial side starts to work out better. I mean, right now we don't make any money on the show. You know what I mean? There's no financial benefit to it. If that changes and say we get some big time sponsors and all of a sudden we can hire a production crew and that takes it off of me being the producer, maybe then the show becomes a lot more easy. You know what I mean?
So when you do get to go ahead to release your TV deal to the public, we'd love to have you back on and as a guest and, release it to the masses. You down for that?
Well, no, I'm absolutely down for it, and you can bet your life that I'll be screaming at the top of my lungs trying to let people know what's going to happen, and hopefully it'll be good exposure. I mean, that's what I hope. But at the same time, I always tell people, whether it's snake bites or TV or whatever the case may be. Certainly it's going to be about entertainment too. You know what I mean? And I always tell people that you have to produce something that people want to watch in order to have a good message. You can't have a good message so that people can watch. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? I always tell people that you can have the best message in the world, and if no one listens or watches, your message doesn't mean anything. So the first and foremost thing is you have to, make sure that people are interested in watching your show. You got to make sure it's entertaining, it's fun, it's whatever it might be, sensational, all these other things. And then you have to have a great message, but also it gives you the platform to have a great message. You know what I mean? It's like if you have a successful show on TV or the Internet for that matter, and maybe you're not really getting the entire message out that you want to get out because maybe the network doesn't want you to get that message out, like they're just not interested in it, in your message, which is usually the case. They're typically not interested in the message that is boring. Sometimes you have to just keep going forward and know that, all right, well, this gives me an opportunity to do talk shows, to do radio shows, to do other things, and then I can get my message out. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing that I don't know where that whole thing will go is, how much will a show on TV actually benefit the hobby. I hope it will. I really do. I hope it will. But again, it depends on the slant that the network decides to take on a show. And as you may or may not know, as the quote unquote talent, you have very little creative input toward which way the direction of a show goes. So it's a little bit scary. That's what goes back to what's nice about online video, is that you have 100% direction of everything you do. You know what I mean? It's like I can do pretty much anything, and I make lots of mistakes, and I do things, and I look back on it and think, why the hell did I do that? But then I can change it and never do it again.
Again, thank you again for coming on, Brian. Again, this is Brian Barczyk from BHB Enterprises, www.bhbreptile.com and snakebites.tv. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Again, I'd like to thank you for coming on our show. Hopefully, like you said, you will be on again promoting your new TV show, so we will be picking this up where we left off. So is there anything that you'd like to leave with in closing?
No, I just, obviously I want to thank you for, asking me to come on, especially on your debut. I mean, that's an honor that we were the first guest, and I can't thank you enough for it. appreciate anyone that listens to the show, and I hope you guys enjoy it and show support to you guys, because these types of shows are very beneficial for the hobby and reaching people, because every show has its own niche audience, and one show doesn't take away from the other show. I mean, it's a great thing, and like I said, I just want to thank you for letting me be part of this inaugural event. It's really great, and you can bet that I'm more than happy to come back on whenever you guys want me to.
Well, we'll be waiting for that new episode when it comes out on Snake Bites TV.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, and like I said, definitely stay in touch, and just again, thanks to everyone that's listening right now.
All right, well, I'm going to end this recording here. Just hold on the line, and that's it. It's a wrap. Herp Herp Hooray, first internet transmission. We out.